In this video, I'm going to be looking more on examining the metaphor of creation, the creation story in Genesis. And I've done a video on the first creation story, the first part of it, the 7-day creation. And then I did a supplement to that. I'll post a link to both of those below. And in this video, I want to get into the second part of creation, but there's one part in here that I think is going to take a lot of time. And I think before doing the whole creation story, I'm going to do, this is kind of a pre-supplement, I suppose, to what I believe the 5 rivers are. There's rivers that appear in here. And those have been the source of a mystery to me quite a bit, trying to hunt that down. So I want to spend some time with that in this video before we get into actually looking at, I'll make a video after this one on the creation number 2, but this is going to kind of help ease that one up. Pack it so full. Okay, if you're not familiar with my work, what I'm finding is that there is a template inside of the monomyth that is actually a template that is, the human life is based, this template is actually based on the human life. The human life isn't based on the template, it's the other way around. We're born, we can become anything, we're programmed as infants to become what we are in life. We have cyclical issues. We want to go back and take care of that. There's a point where this kicks in, and that is what I'm finding so consistently across the board, that I'm looking to see how this begins. Genesis is not exactly the monomyth. It is not. It is a precursor to the monomyth. The monomyths emerge after this. But what I'm finding is that creation here is the creation of the human. You just have to extract that out of there. It is not the creation of, well, we know it's not the creation of the universe, but it is a meaningful story that has something in there for us that's teaching us how we came about, and then we can infer from that how to change our lives. And there are instructions in here on how to do that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do right now is just read the creation story up until the rivers part right there. It's a fairly short section, and then we'll stop and let me just start. Let's see if we can figure out what those rivers are for. In the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, when no plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was no one to till the ground. But a stream would rise from the earth, and water the whole face of the ground. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living being, and the Lord God planted a garden in Eden, in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Out of the ground the Lord God made to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A river flows out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divides and becomes 4 branches. The name of the first is Pishon. It is the one that flows around the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. Bdellium and onyx stone are there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It is the one that flows around the whole land of Cush. The name of the third river is Tigris, which flows east of Assyria. And the 4th river is the Euphrates. Okay, let's stop right there. We got the 5 rivers, the one that flows out of Eden, and then it splits into 4. What a mystery. What are those? We know that there are, that those rivers exist there. So they're pulling analogs from their culture and they're using them, and they're somehow designated differently. Some of them flow around something. It's like they contain it. That's interesting. And then one of them has gold, and the gold of the land is good, and bdellium and onyx stone are there. So there's some interesting things to think about. But I never could from here figure this out. Here is what I get to from elsewhere. What I want to do is take us to a different place first, a different piece of material. This is from Jesus later on, from the Gospel of Thomas. And first I just want to bring your attention down to this bottom section down here that I've got highlighted in red. For there are 5 trees for you in paradise, which remain undisturbed summer and winter, and whose leaves do not fall. Whoever becomes acquainted with them will not experience death. And before moving on from here, let me just say that this is verse 19 in a book where there's over 100 verses. This is early in the teaching. And what we're going to find is that this 5 appears early in the teachings. Let's go to another source. We'll come back to this in a second, but take a look at this now. And this comes from the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth, the oldest creation myth that we really have that's really in good shape. It's older than Genesis. And what we have here, I'll tell you that the way this works is that all of the characters in this story are parts of who and what we are at just different times in our life and different aspects of us. The good parts, the bad parts, the parts that argue with ourselves, the early self, older self, all of that are what is emerging in here. And Marduk is being called into play right here. This is who is going to become the hero of the hero's journey, like Jason and the Argonauts, or Moses in later on as Genesis progresses. And Marduk is that individual here. And what we see here is, moreover, he possessed 4 ears to hear and 4 eyes to see. Red flames leapt forth whenever he opened his mouth. His 4 ears were also considerable, of voluminous size, as were his eyes, which were capable of perceiving anything. What this is actually coming out to be right here is that there's not going to be many people called. This is somebody who just has a different perception than other people. They hear more, they see more. Your scope of awareness is just larger than most people. You know, where most people look and say, boy, we need to make things better. My tribe has to survive. We're the ones that are going, oh my God, the human race is the tribe. We need to fix the whole place, the whole thing. So that kind of sets that up here. Moreover, he possessed 4 ears to hear and 4 eyes to see, and red flames leapt forth whenever he opened his mouth. His 4 ears were also considerable, of voluminous size, as were his eyes, which were capable of perceiving anything, being unsurpassed among the gods, of exceptional build, having limbs which were mighty, and a body terrifically tall. When Anu cried, Mariutu, my son, you are the king of the gods, dressed in a shining robe fit for 10 gods, rising beyond him, there were 5 almighty beams which surmounted his head. And Anu invented the 4 winds and then fashioned them. These he set in Marduk's hand, saying, free them, my son. Okay, so we see the 5 beams which surmounted his head. Again, these are all cryptic, and these things are coming from 3,500, 4,000 years ago. They're living in a world that we can't imagine. I mean, we can try, but I think it's tough to get there. We need to let those words be okay, but understand that they're not serious words. They're using analogs that fit at their time to carry this meaning. So there's something in here that is not all mysterious like this sounds. There's something in here that is actually very structured. It's just takes a while to extract it. Okay, let's go back and take a look at something in the Gospel of Thomas here for a minute. And actually, before I do that, let me say something else. That teaching template, or that life template, you're born, you can become anything, that whole thing that we're working on emerges in all of the material. It emerges in the Tao Te Ching as a very simple teaching that is not nested in an adventure. It is simply, here are the steps you take, and they're cryptic. You've got to figure them out. There's no adventure to go with this story. It's just the block of instruction. Taoism is then made from that. So you have the initial human template turned cryptic into Chinese Taoist terms, and then converted into Taoism. And actually what that means to me is that this basic template is there, and you can turn around and take it, the mental process, and take it right into your mind and heal with it. And if not, you can become a Taoist and live a lifestyle that replicates this on a very gentle way, where you're doing the forgiveness by doing acts, by trying to help other people, by doing things like that. Instead of looking at the issue directly, you're doing it more indirectly. And instead of it being something very quick that leaves you empty, it's something that takes time, and it gives you a lifestyle. It gives you something to live with. The Dhammapada, you got that same template, the same life template that then emerges in northern India about the same time, Tibet. And it is also cryptic. It is also not in a hero's journey template, a story-like thing. It is still sequencing the way the human would. It starts off how you came about and that sort of thing. In Jesus' teachings, the Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on the Plain, Gospel of Thomas, they do the same thing. So they're sequencing through there, even though they are not a mythological example of how to carry that template, something you don't live out as an adventure, which carries that, but in a very cryptic way, or in a religion, which carries it in a cryptic way. So all of these, the way they compare is interesting, is that they are all containing that template, but the outer vehicles are all radically different, the way that they're carrying them. Okay, so with that having been said, this has 114 verses in it, and the first ones start right off like this. Let's see how it begins here. These are the secret sayings which the living Jesus spoke, and which Didymus Judas Thomas wrote down. And he said, whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. Jesus said, let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will become astonished, and he will rule over the all. That first part there is actually kind of qualifying itself. Here's the source that it comes from, and it's also listing the destination. You can see right up front, it is telling you that you will not experience death. And in this case, what we actually know from that is that this is a spiritual death. What we're looking for is the kingdom of heaven within, in Jesus' material, actually. But given this is not a interpretation of the Gospel of Thomas, let's move right on into the next part here. I just want to show a couple of things. Jesus said, if those who lead you say to you, see, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. If I were to interpret that and read it in the way that I do, Jesus said that is the qualification. These are verses that are floating around in a culture of people just telling stories. These might be scattered all over the place, so you want to know who they came from. So almost every one of them starts off with Jesus said. If those who lead you say to you, see, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. So this is telling us about people that are telling us that heaven is out in space, or heaven is in the ocean. Then something else is going to precede you. They're not there. What this is basically saying is that the kingdom is here now. It's inside of you. It's outside of you. It is your life experience. And you need to know that. You need to know yourself, that you became a product of your life experience, and that is how you came about. And this is telling us what other material is telling us, but in a different way. And you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. The living Father is the higher being. We are offspring from that. But if you do not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. It's starting to set things up. Look what's next. Jesus said, the man old in days will not hesitate to ask a small child 7 days old about the place of life, and he will live. For many who are first will become last, and they will become one and the same. This is our 7-day-old child, our 7-day creation. This is how do you want to have a happy life? Get back to that point before you judged, before sin happened, while you were that happy kid that was not connected to the world. We can't get there anymore. We have to disconnect our emotions and let things go in order to live free in life. We can't be that child anymore. We know too many things now, but we can let go and try to find peace within at this time. 7 days old, that's the place. Jesus said, recognize what is in your sight, and that which is hidden from you will become plain to you, for there is nothing hidden which will not become manifest. God created the trees, and the trees with the seeds in them, and the seeds created the plants that had fruit with more seeds in them again, Recognize what is in your sight, and that which is hidden from you will become plain to you, for there is nothing hidden which will not become manifest. Whatever is growing from our garden is going to emerge. This is cycles beginning right here. This is teaching us the same thing. So you see this teaching right here without going into it anymore is getting into that same flow. I'm looking at that as I'm taking the 5 into consideration. Where does this fit? It's always fitting near the beginning. It's in the creation of the mind. It's in the creation of the process. That's important to me. One thing I don't want to talk about, but I have to talk about, and that is the idea that it could be the 5 senses. I've dismissed that early on, although I still get a lot of Gnostics that will, angrily tell me, dude, you're stupid. It's the 5 senses. How simple is that? And you're like, well, that's a little too simple. And besides, they're people born blind and they can't hear and whatever. How does that work? How does that mean? And the best explanation I got from somebody was that basically if all of your senses, if your life, if everything is together, then everything feels good. But there's nothing really interactive there. I go, well, okay, that sounds good. I can't do much with it. I find something that's actually structured differently. And that is in the story. There's something very deliberate. I'm going to go again with the 5 parts of what the mind is. And this kind of evolved somewhere else. I'm bringing it to the rivers, thinking that that's what they might be doing there, but let's just keep playing with it. I don't know yet. We'll just keep talking it out. We'll figure it out. Okay, the higher being, again, that's the part of you that can step back and look at life without attachment to it. It's hard to get there if you haven't practiced it. We have our consciousness, which experiences life. We look at life and we judge. I like that or I don't like that. And then we put that away. The conscious puts it into the subconscious, and the way it gets put away, it becomes derogatory or positive. All of these are things that are structuring in our mind. Those are 4 parts right there. The higher being, the conscious being, the subconscious being, and the things that we put in there. There's a 5th place, and that is how we flow. We're in that cosmos, and life unfolds for us based on the manner in which this mass is, whether it's the stuff we're consciously trying to portray and pretend like everything is okay. That's not it. It's the stuff that is hidden away that we don't want to deal with. That continues to emerge when we're not paying attention. That is constantly acting out, and the flow that we have in life is dependent upon the quality of that. So those are 5 things right there that are consistent. Also, as we go through the material, you will have a point where, let's grab something benign. Jason and the Argonauts. I become Jason. I am the hero on the hero's journey. I need help from God. My higher self is the one that is helping me pass through the clashing rocks to go deal with the issues that I have to. It's telling me, hey, yeah, you got raped, you got molested, you raped, you molested, you did something here. And you know what it is because you know it feels bad. Look at it, observe it, see it, stop turning away from it because it's not disappearing. It is not only there, but it's acting out and it's continuing to grow as you leave it in place. That is what the higher being does with the consciousness to make the conscious go, oh my God, I've got to take care of this. I can't keep allowing this to happen. And then we begin to work with whoever we have the issues with. We work to resolve them until you're like, oh God, I feel good now. Yeah, I just needed to get that taken care of. I needed to somehow resolve that in such a way that the guilt, the pain, the shame was gone. That experience goes away at that point. That is how the material works. So what do I think the 5 are? I think the 5 are very directly the higher self, the consciousness, the subconscious, the characteristics that we have hidden away, and the way we live life, because everything that we do is dependent upon that right there. That is how our life emerges. Those 5 senses, what do you do with that? You can do something with these. Okay, so I wanted to cover that in this video because I think that it's extensive enough that it took a little bit of time, and it kind of goes all over the place. And in fact, I'm struggling myself to appreciate how complicated it is and how much it seems like it's all over as I go through these and I finally figure out that they're all teaching the same thing at a core level. It's very bizarre to get there. And then when you do, it's hard to show it, it's hard to convey it, but then you realize there's sequences going on, that this is sequencing in the same way that this is sequencing, in the same way that this is sequencing, in the same way that these are sequencing. Hey, I bet you there's something in common between them all. It's just kind of spot on. That's what you look for. We don't have the knowledge that they had. What we're trying to do is grab all of the stories and look for the similarities and look for those patterns, play them out in the psyche, once knowing that, okay, that's what they're doing. And then, decode it that way, interpret. It remains consistent. It's always about self-healing. It never changes. That's why I think it's right. Okay, let's take a quick look again at the, actually before I quit the video, and just take a look at the thing about the rivers again. A river flows out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divides and becomes 4 branches. And then it goes on from there. Let's just stop right there. There were 5 rivers right there. One of them is different than the others because it flows out of Eden to water the garden. Flows out of Eden to water the garden. Eden is, isn't Eden and the garden the same place? We're seeing something interesting here. The river flows out of Eden to water the garden. Eden is a state of being that is the place where we exist when we are that blissful, disconnected self. Water flows out there to water our garden, what manifests from us. And from there it divides and becomes 4 branches. Boy, I don't know. I can't quite make the connection. You see, I'm still bouncing things around. It almost sounds to me like the way that we flow in life, the Tao would be that river flowing from Eden to water the garden. This is how we experience life, through this river. And it's the quality of the other 4 rivers. And the one about, I just almost blew right past this one. Going back to the 5 trees in paradise. Paradise is going to be a good mental place. When you play it out in the psyche, nirvana, the kingdom of heaven within, inner peace, eudaimonia, high quality of life, good flow in the Tao, the kingdom of heaven within. Did I say that one yet? All of these, paradise, they're all analogs for the same place. That's what we're all looking to achieve. All of these are leading to that same place. They're on that template of how to become happy. That human life template. The 5 trees, if they're all connected and functioning together, then we're happy in life. We've got all of those online. We understand this. We know this. And I see that then as something, all of these become really kind of interactive to look at, and they become very consistent in the same process. And that's what gives me confidence with conveying it. But it is all a mental process that is interactive, that does cause results. If somebody goes through it, it changes one's life, period. It's demonstrable in that manner. All right, hope this was helpful. I'm going to continue on and get ready now to do the second creation story. And when we get to this part right here, this will be, I can refer back to this. And hopefully that's it. If not, there's more to it. There's also directions. There's the river names themselves. What are they using it for? They're not just grabbing rivers. It's, this river's polluted. We're going to call this one the bad one. Oh, this one circles around Kush. What does Kush mean? There's more to these that are layered in there that I don't know what they are. It's beyond my current day understanding. Still working on it, but that's basically what I'm doing. I don't know that I need to understand what that meant to them, that river. I think we can imply some point that it's something different. And it doesn't appear everywhere. What happened in the first creation story? There weren't the rivers. There was the seas that were created under the land or as a part of the land. So there's different things going on that are still going to come to the same place. We'll find those. Anyway, hope this was helpful. Love one another. Merry Christmas. Peace to the world. See you next video.